Hello guys, how are you? I hope you are fine. Today I'm gonna talk about a grammar lesson which is superlative. Okay, let's firstly have a look at the objectives of our lesson. We will revise, comparing, and learn superlative. We will have some discussion and we will do some exercises. Firstly, let's have a look at how we can make a comparative and superlative forms of one-syllable adjectives. We form the comparative and superlative forms of one-syllable adjectives by adding ER for the comparative form and EST for the superlative. For example, Mary is taller than Max. Okay, so tall is a one-syllable adjective and I have to make a comparative sentence. Okay, so I add ER to the adjective, then I add than. Mary is taller than Max. Mary is the tallest of all the students. Here is a superlative. Okay, so I have to add EST to the one-syllable adjective, which is tall. Okay, so I add EST. The adjective, EST, okay, and then I complete my sentence. Max is older than Joan. Max is older than Joan. Here, old is a one-syllable adjective, so I have to add ER, okay, to the adjective, then I add than. Of the three students, Max is the oldest. The oldest, okay, here, EST, I add EST. My hair is longer than your hair. Okay, so here long is a one-syllable adjective, so I add ER to the adjective. Max's story is the longest story I have ever heard. Here, the longest, because I'm making here a superlative sentence. So, the one-syllable adjective in the comparative form becomes I add ER, so tall, taller, okay? With the superlative form, I add EST, so tall, taller, tallest. Old, older, oldest. Long, longer, longest. Okay, let's continue. If the one-syllable adjective ends with an E, we just add R for the comparative form and ST for the superlative form. For example, Mary's car is larger than Max's car. Here I add only R to the adjective large. Mary's house is the largest of all the houses on the block. Okay, so here I only add ST, okay, because the adjective large ends actually with E. Okay, Max is wiser than his brother. Max is wiser than his brother. Here wise, the adjective wise ends in E, so I only have to add R at the end of the adjective, okay, to make a comparative form. Okay, Max is wiser than his brother. Max is the wisest person I know. Here I add only ST to the adjective wise, which ends actually in E. Okay, so large, one-syllable adjective with final E, large. In the comparative form, I add only R, okay, large, larger. In the superlative form, I add only ST, largest. Wise, yeah, it's also a one-syllable adjective with final E, so I add R, wiser. In the superlative, wisest. Okay. Here, an adjective ends in consonant, vowel, consonant. I have to double the final consonant, then I add ER if I make a comparative form, and EST if I have to form or to make a superlative form. For example, my dog is bigger than your dog. The adjective big, consonant, vowel, consonant, so I have to double the last consonant, then I add ER. My dog is the biggest of all the dogs in the neighborhood. Okay, so here I add est. Okay, and firstly I have to double the final consonant. Max is thinner than Joan. Thinner than Joan. So thin, consonant, vowel, consonant. So I have to double the last consonant, then I add er to make a comparative form. Of all the students in the class, Max is the thinnest. Of course, I double the final consonant, then I add est. My mother is fatter than your mother. Fatter than your mother. Yeah, of course I add er and I double the final consonant, so fatter, fatter. Okay. Mary is the fattest person I have ever seen. The fattest. Okay. Consonant, vowel, consonant, so I have to double the final consonant, then I add est. So big, thin, fat, consonant, vowel, consonant. I have to double the final consonant, then I add er if it's in a comparative form, and est if it's in the superlative form. Okay. The two-syllable adjectives. With most two-syllable adjectives, you form the comparative with more and the superlative with most. Okay? So, for example, this morning is more peaceful than yesterday morning. Here I add more because peaceful is an adjective with two syllables. Okay? It's a two-syllable adjective. So I have to add more before it. Okay? Max's house in the mountains is the most peaceful in the world. Okay? Here I add the most because I'm making a superlative sentence. Max is more careful than Mike. Max is more careful than Mike. Here careful is a two-syllable adjective, so I have to add more before it. Of all the taxi drivers, Jack is the most careful. The most careful. Of course, as careful is a two-syllable adjective, so I have to add the most. Okay. Jill is more thoughtful than your sister. Yeah, thoughtful here is a two-syllable adjective, so I have to add more before it. Mary is the most thoughtful person I have ever met. So, peaceful, pleasant, careful, thoughtful, and all similar adjectives with two syllables, we have to add more before it when I make a comparative sentence, okay? And most before it if I make a superlative sentence. Okay. Now the two-syllable adjective ending with y. When I see or when I find an adjective ends in y, to make it as a comparative form or superlative, I have firstly to change the y into I, then I add er if I make a comparative form, and est if I make a superlative form. So for example, John is happier today than he was yesterday. So here I change the y into I, then I add er to make a comparative sentence. John is the happiest boy in the world. Okay, here I also change the y into I, then I add est. Max is angrier than Mary. Here angry ends in y, so I have to change the y into I, then I add er. Of all of Joan's victims, Max is angriest. Okay, Mary is busier than Max. The same, busy is a two-syllable adjective ending in y, so I have to change the y into I, then I add er. Mary is the busiest person I have ever met. Okay, also I have to change the y into I, then I add est. So the two-syllable adjective ending with y, if I make a comparative form, I have to add er, but before it, I have to change the y into I. The superlative form, I have to add est, but before it, I have to change the y into I. So happy, happier, happiest. Angry, angrier, angriest. Busy, busier, busiest. Okay. Now let's have a look at the adjectives with 3 or more syllables. For adjectives with 3 syllables or more, you form the comparative with more and the superlative with most. For example, Joan is more generous than Jack. Joan is the most generous of all the people I know. Health is more important than money. Of all the people I know, Max is the most important. Women are more intelligent than men. Mary is the most intelligent person I've ever met. So these are the adjectives with 3 or more syllables. I have to add more if I make a comparative form and most if I make a superlative form. Okay, let's answer this exercise together. Fill in the correct form of the words in brackets superlative. Okay, number 1. My house is big. One in the street. Excellent. My house is the biggest. The biggest. Okay, and I have to double the last consonant, then I add est. Excellent. Good job. Number 2. This flower is beautiful flower I have ever seen. Excellent. Beautiful here is more than 1 syllable, so I have to add the most because I make a superlative sentence. So I can say this flower is the most beautiful flower I have ever seen. This example actually is already answered. Imad is the tallest student in the class. Spanish is excellent. The easier language to learn. So the easiest, Spanish is the easiest language to learn because here I'm making a superlative sentence, the easiest. And I have to change the Y into I, then I add est. Okay. Number 5. He was the clever thief of all. Excellent. He was the cleverest. The cleverest. I have to add est. Thank you so much for listening and see you soon.